Here with Jeanette and Nick, and we're going to talk about this fabulous exhibition that we got to see at what is it, the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archives, BAMPFA. Lee ShinJa, Drawing with Thread, which will be on view through February 1st. So, Jeanette and Nick, why don't you just both tell me a little bit about, let's talk about who Lee ShinJa is.
Um, I'll start. The If you remember, Korea was divided in after the Korean War. Was that 1951, Rodney?
50s, 1950s.
1950. Okay, so I believe the part of Korea she was born in was South Korea originally. What is Korea originally is now South Korea. She was 20 years old when she started making textile works. She lives in Seoul right now. She's 95 years old. And this is the very first major showing of her work in the United States. And we're showing you the pieces in more or less chronological order. We'll see if we got that straight. So, when,
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Jeanette?
Just that it's if you can make it, we're gonna do the best we can with a lot of close-ups of the photos of her work, but seeing it in person is really stunning. Really, like I walked in and I was wow, 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 wow. And because of all of the details and the textures and it's absolutely amazing. I am so, so happy that this show is here and that we get to talk about it today.
Yeah, it's a great show, and it really points out the fact that the Berkeley Art Museum is really a fabulous university art museum. We're kind of lucky because we have two great university art museums in the Bay Area. I'm thinking of the, Cantor down at Stanford, but this one also great place to visit. So I've got just a bunch of installation views that the museum was kind enough to present us with, just to give you an idea of what the exhibition looks like. It's in two really big gallery rooms. And this is what you're going to see. We're going to go and look at these things in detail, some of them, because I think from a distance, you don't really get a sense of what they're made of, what it's like to be in front of them, but pretty cool. Like I always want to go to the museum and see something I never expected to see before. And for me, this really checked that box. Anything that two of you want to add to just the overall idea of the gallery space?
I appreciated the fact that the pieces are hung in more or less chronological order because that enabled me to see that really early on she was very interested in how to represent 3D in a flat surface, something that hung on the wall. And we'll see that sometimes she does it through traditional techniques like perspective. It's still flat, but it looks three-dimensional. And gradually you see her coming off of the surface to do true sculptural works. And you'll also see that around the 70s and the 80s, she has contact with other textile artists, and she's clearly exchanging ideas with them, and her work changes at about around that time to become more sculptural.
Yeah. And
I just, oh,
go ahead, Jeanette.
no, I was also just want to do a little shout out for any of you textile makers out there at any level. I'm a knitter. I'm wearing a shawl I knit. If you have any expertise or just knowledge at all about any sort of textile craft that because she incorporates so many textile crafts into her amazing artwork that if you have anything that you want to add, we'd love to also hear from people from like a maker's perspective as well.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to welcome that. Let's go ahead and dive in. Here is the first work you view, and it's from early in her career, 1958. 10 longevity symbols. Let me start with you, Jeanette. Like, what are some of the things that really strike you about this image?
Well, I may have mentioned in other times that I was here, but one, I'm a birder. So immediately the birds that are flying through this really struck me. I think that they're absolutely beautiful. I love their sort of elongation and abstraction. Um, but really, that was what probably first struck me. And this beautiful, vibrant red color is such a perfect background and so eye-catching. Um, but then what makes it even more magical besides this is all of the details of all of the various techniques she used to make this.
Yeah, what about you, Nick? What do you want to add to that?
Actually, go ahead to the next slide and we can see some of those details. Here are the birds. Um, Black head, long orange bill, looks like a tern to me. Looks like a reindeer holding something in his or her mouth. Because I say that because there seem to be antlers.
But no elves. Sorry.
And those beautiful frogs. Not frogs, but excuse me, turtles.
Turtles. Yeah. Yeah, nice close up, and you get a sense of like, the materials that she's using. That I think she's repurposed, a screen from, like this. This is something that it's like a found material for her.
Hmm.
We're
Yeah, if
guessing,
you
right?
you may not tell in the photo, but it does look like it's worn and worn not in a way that, a museum piece even from 1958 is going to be pristine, but that background screen part really does look worn. So yeah.
I think it is. In this slide, you can really understand the title of the show, Drawing with Thread, because the lines that you're seeing are actually threads. Um, and anyone who's sewn knows that you could make a line by going in and out in a straight line. So that's what we're seeing here, but the threads are different colors. She's making geometric patterns. But if you go to the next slide, Rodney, you could see she's also using the same technique to make masses of form, to make a whole area here. Um, it's not a line, now it's a volume or an area. And then on top of that, we have the lines of that gold colored thread. So she's really experimenting a lot. And I think that's what impresses me about her work in the first 10 years. She's trying everything.
Yeah, I mean, she's using the same techniques you would use to draw, but she's using thread.
Hmm.
And we'll see later on that she does actually draw many of her images as like something to work from.
Yep.
All right, should we move on to the next?
Oh yeah. At this pace, we're not going to get through foot.
I know we have a lot of slides. So this one, another one, early 60s. And she's really like, first of all, it's important to note that she was not trained. She didn't go to some fancy art school. She's really self-taught in a lot of her techniques. This one, was intriguing. Like it wasn't clear to me how it was done. Nick, you want to talk to us a little bit about like what struck you about this piece?
Yeah, once again, I'm seeing mixed media. I'm seeing ink or paint, the black lines on the canvas. I'm seeing a palette of green and light blue and that russet color of russet potato, right? I don't see, so there's three colors in black is what I'm seeing. If we go to the next slide, we can see how she builds up these volumes. Once again, on the right, you see the parallel lines to make a volume or an area of blue, and then on the left with green. Then she's repeating it. There's an echo with the brush. On the right, we see brush marks to make what might be the retina of an eye, or the cornea, I guess. Um, so and the image on the right at the top, you see the gold threads, the yellow colored threads. So the overall effect is rather shimmering and very rich.
Yeah, it's a really seamless juxtaposition of these two different types of materials.
Hmm.
Jeanette, what struck you about this piece?
Well, if you, yeah, I was gonna say want to go back. You know, what's also interesting is we'll see, Nick said the eyeball, the cornea. I'm not, I don't think any of us are sure exactly what that is supposed to reference in this particular piece. But yeah, that circular shape we're going to see in other works from this period as well, that sort of like eye shape. When I first saw this, I almost saw it as a map and
Mhm.
like a city map and like with blocks and trees on the blocks. But I don't know, here now that seeing it further back from on the screen, it almost looks like it could be architecture, like a building. And then, Nick mentioned also the eyes, that there's so many different ways that we can enter into this work and see it in different ways holistically before we even get down into, all of the texture that adds so much to it. And if you go again, let's see the texture again, is it's not just that there are these threads in different I guess types of stitches in different directions, but there's also different thicknesses. So some quite stand out quite a bit, and other ones are flatter against the surface. So it creates so much more texture and depth. And really, I feel like this is one of those ones, seeing it in person, I think we stood in front of it for a good long time because there was so much to get excited about um, with this one. I love it. What about you, Rodney? You always
Well,
ask us questions, but
I just think it's really interesting that she's in Korea doing this. She's not part of the New York scene. She's not in Europe. I don't think she's even very aware of what's going on in those places. And yet this is very modern. And Ron made a great comment in chat. Is this inspired by Cubism? Is there a connection to Picasso? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Could this exist without Picasso's work? I
yeah,
don't.
that's a great question.
It's a great question. Well, we always love questions that we don't know the answer to.
I also just, Nick pointed out the color palette, but it does seem like the color palette is very much of the era. Um, and I think it's going to be interesting to see her colors change as through the years.
That's another interesting thing about this exhibition is that it is a retrospective, and we see her evolution. She's someone who's got a lot of range, is going to do a lot of different things. So
Hmm.
this one, so we had like that one pretty abstract. This one I'd still say is abstract, but it's an actual, she calls it Portrait of My Daughter. Jeanette, let me start with you. I mean, I know you loved this one. What
Yeah.
was it about it that really drew you in?
Just it feels a little bit quirky. It feels like this would be a character we love in a if it was in a like Tim Burton film. But I mean, this is not that. This is definitely her own and her own style, but there's something sort of uh quirky and charming and delightful about this for me. It's how the eyes, she uses different stitch techniques with the two different eyes, and that they're not parallel. They're sort of tilted a little, which gives her head a little tilt to it. I like the colors, the sort of lighter palette. And then this hand that I think has no stitches whatsoever, but is just sort of drawn. So it's like she's saying hi, or, she's got her hand up. And then I think when we first saw it together, we were talking about Matisse, and it kind of reminded me. This is a big leap, but like of the painting of Matisse's wife that used so many different colors, and everyone was like, "What is all of that?" And I feel like here she's doing her version of that, this portrait of her daughter with all of these different textures and threads, and and like, what is that? What is that, a hat? That's great. And it brought that kind of excitement to me.
Yeah.
Next slide, Rodney, shows those textures and how she creates them in threads.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's so great to have this detail. And
Yeah.
Nick worked on a lot of these slides and just really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um,
And Jeanette made the photos. These are Jeanette's photos, I believe.
so
Tell the difference.
a question I have for one of you is what do you think her daughter thinks of this? Or daughter's still around and taking care of her mom, I suppose. Do you think she liked this?
I have rarely heard of a subject of a photo or an artwork saying, I really love that. They usually say, well, that doesn't look like me, or I don't like that in some way. How about you guys? Do you think subjects usually like the way artists represent them?
I think personally, I think maybe her daughter would like it because her mom, like, did all these things, but, took the time to do this. I think this figure in the top part, this is another eyeball up here. And whose eye is it? Could it possibly be Lee ShinJa looking over her daughter? What do you think, Jeanette?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. How in a lot of ways, I think that it doesn't really matter if the subject likes the way that the artist represents them, because it's the artist's view that is the unique thing, that the way that we want to see the subject. And so the subject becomes something different than the person. This isn't her daughter. This is just uh,
Her image of her
like
daughter,
one lens through which we can view her daughter. And I don't know if she did any other works of her daughter, but I could imagine they would all be different. And so, but it's such an interesting idea to think about that. It sounds like, Nick, you think that the daughter probably wouldn't like it so much. Rodney, you probably think that the daughter would
you
like
have to
it.
break the tie, Jeanette.
And I'm not going to break the tie. I think it doesn't matter.
I
All
agree.
right.
It doesn't
Well,
matter.
if Lee
I
Shinja's daughter gets to see the recording of this on YouTube, she wants to let us know. That's the beauty of
Yeah.
the world we live in today.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning that Lee Shinja was also raising her children while she was having this art career. It does remind me of Ruth Asawa and, famously the pictures of her children as she's working on her wire sculpture. So, yeah, I don't know. Lee Shinja's daughter, please get in touch with us.
Excuse me,
Help her.
Rodney. I just want to chime. Looks like a tapestry too.
Looks like
Yeah.
a tapestry. Yeah, well, this
Yep.
is this is textile art. And Paco, what do you think? Do you like that sort of doing images in thread?
Oh yes, too.
And I also want to Ron had a great comment that this brings to mind Miro, and that there's a surrealistic aspect to a lot of these things that we're looking at.
Yeah, there's one particular one tapestry toward the end that I was like, "Oh, I think I even brought up photos of some of Miro's work when I saw it." I was like, yeah, right. You got it. Yeah.
If you go to the next slide, uh, this on the right is very Miro-esque. The way these plant-like forms are on these spindly things, and they've got these circles and these pyramids that are part of the plant structure. Does anybody know what kind of technique this is?
Could this part be applique? These because these are already maybe pre-made fabric panels that have been added to the canvas, but then this is something she's clearly done herself.
That's the way it looks to me, Rodney. It looks like these are pieces of fabric cut in shapes and then sewn onto the canvas or the fabric. And like you just said, I also think the black horizontal, I don't want to cross hatching, but the parallel lines in the top flower, or it is a flower, are her own additions with thread.
Yeah. We had the reindeer earlier. Could these be Christmas trees? Possibly. Sorry,
Maybe
trying to be topical here, folks.
Yeah.
the
This is our
Christmas tree lot.
It's our holiday show.
I like the
Um,
feeling of collage though that we get from this, like textile collage.
Hmm.
yeah, it is. That's a good point. It is collage, and there you go. Doesn't that make us think of Matisse again?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Although we have a close color harmony that we rarely see in Matisse here. These are all closely coordinated. This is the kind of thing you'd see at the Gap.
Yeah. Tell
Doesn't
me
it
more
feel,
about that, Nick.
this is not a put down. This is a recognition that artists are do the R and the D, the research and development that commercial artists and designers pick up decades later.
Okay, I like that. And let's move on. Oh, no, we have more of this one.
Oh, look at the
Is this the
color.
same one or is this?
Yeah, this is the same one. This is
Yeah.
the bigger piece of flowers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love seeing all the stitch definitions there that you can see on the fabric. And just the mix, the complete mix. That
Yeah.
you've got a piece of fabric and then the stitches on over it. I just love it. Yeah.
Mhm. And
I mean,
remember this.
who else is doing things like this at that time? You know, I mean, we're going to talk about some other artists that influenced her or that were maybe doing similar things at the same time, but it just is very original.
I think it is too. I think it is too. And she's getting a lot of pushback, as we saw. There was a note on the gallery text that people said that she was destroying the tradition of embroidery, or that it looks like she wove this thing with her hands or with her feet.
Her
With her
feet.
Wove with
feet.
her feet.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if you could weave something like this with your feet, I mean,
Yeah, really.
that would
Yeah.
be pretty cool. I would, I'd be kind of impressed. I would take that as a compliment.
Hmm.
And then maybe sign her up for the South Korean soccer team or something. So let's move on to this one. This one's really interesting. I mean, they all are, but this one's more mixed media, but it also has this. Well, let me ask you, Nick, what kind of materials do you see being used here?
I believe this is cotton. And well, because I read the wall text, I know what it is. It's wax resist, which we know as batik, where you paint the wax, apply the wax on areas that you do not want to be colored. So you leave the areas that you do want to be, let's say orange, unpainted, uncovered with wax, and then you dip it in the dye, orange dye, yellow dye, brown dye. And each time you're taking it out, washing it, and putting a new layer of wax to protect the areas from being dyed, colored on a second pass. And I imagine, and I've never done this, so take this with a grain of salt, that I think that she's allowing certain areas to be dyed twice. So you get color mixing. So, like the brown arch on the right panel, there's an arching form. Looks like it has the orange in it, as well as another brown or yellow on top to get that color. I imagine weeks and weeks of experimenting to get this all right.
Yeah, it's almost like a printmaking technique. Jeanette, let me ask you, I was thinking of Mary Cassatt because we saw her amazing prints at the show at the Legion of Honor. I don't know if are you allowed to comment on that? If there could be a connection between these?
Well, I'd love to hear more about your seeing that connection because it's harder for me to see it.
Just that like this is something that takes a huge amount of trial and error to come up with
Yeah.
these techniques. In some ways they're very different, but just like she is not a one-trick pony. She is just constantly looking for new ways of advancing her art. And this one is just like a total departure from what she had been doing earlier. It's
Absolutely.
1965
Yeah.
now.
Do the
One,
next slide,
one
Rodney. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one thing that I really like about this is it feels both, to me, it feels both futuristic, like maybe that face on the right is like a robot or a machine,
Like up
but at the
here,
same time, it feels sort of really ancient as well. And I don't know, like the shapes and the colors. So it feels both futuristic and ancient at the same time in an interesting way. I don't know if anyone else gets either one of those or both of those
I
or
do. I do. I pick up an Aztec mask in the upper right
yeah,
corner.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of a fascinating, like, what is this?
but
Is
it
it
also
is
sort of looks like a robot to me.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I love it. I think that and the colors are feel like earth colors. You know, they feel like colors that come from the earth. You find these blues of lakes and the browns of soil and the greens of grasses and plants and the orange of fall where the it's all changing. It feels like this is the earth.
Yes, it does. And it does. And it also is enhanced by all of this web of black lines. I don't know how she produced that. It does look a little bit like tie-dye effect. Can you do the next slide, Rodney? Look at this.
Yeah.
Amazing. And she's enhancing it. And so initially I talked about the dyeing, the wax resistor, the batik, but you see she's amplifying the colors with her stitching on top. So she's using yellow thread on top of a yellow background, blue thread on top of blue dyed cloth, and so forth.
And she's using all sorts of stitching, you know, stitches that are parallel to each other, stitches that crisscross in, you know, perpendicular lines, stitches that crisscross in every which way,
Yeah.
circular stitches, just straight lines. It's absolutely amazing. She doesn't just do one thing ever.
No, she's constantly experimenting.
yeah.
We'll
Paco
see.
says he sees a butterfly in this. I'm wondering if it's
Oh,
maybe in
maybe the
here.
orange. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like
Yeah.
a monarch.
Yeah.
Indeed,
And,
indeed.
I want to just add that like she's not like she's making tons of money doing these things. She is not. She gets I think very limited recognition, but she's able to survive teaching art
Hmm.
at a college in South Korea. So she's
Hmm.
really going to all this trouble just because she feels driven to do so as an artist.
And anyone who is a maker knows that all of this is going to be taking so much time. Like all these stitches, each one of these individual stitches, it's I well first like the dyeing process, then all the stitches. This is an incredible amount of time that goes into this, and it's stunning.
Yeah. Nikki sees a totem in this.
Yeah, I can see that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are great comments. All right, so let's talk about her in the context of things going on out in the outside world. Nick, you want to talk about this?
Sure. This photograph it appears in the vitrine in the show, and I thought it was really interesting because the woman in the center with the pink shawl is Sheila Hicks. And Sheila Hicks right now has an exhibit at SF MoMA. It's a small exhibit. It's all in one room. It's not nearly as big as Lee ShinJa's, but it's worth a comparison because at least I, felt a real influence of Hicks as well as another Polish fabric artist by the name of Magdalena Abakanowicz. And I'll show you some pictures. We'll show you some pictures from them in a moment here. And what's happening here is that these other people, not just these two women, but others, are using the material in a sculptural way. The piece on the right is now at SF MoMA. I can't recall the title of it right now.
Untitled. Most things at SFMOMA are.
This one does have a title, and I've forgotten it. But in any case, and I didn't put it on there. I'm sorry. In any case, you see the very thick yarn stands about 12 feet high in the gallery. And then it just tumbles to the ground like that. And you'll see the idea of yarn or forms tumbling to the bottom of a tapestry or sculptural textile that she make that Lee ShinJa makes, and you get a sense of the size, the scale of Akanowitz's work there. Next slide, please.
Oh, hold on. There.
Yeah, so this is look at the piece on the left, which is Linen by Sheila Hicks, and see what she's doing. The vertical threads, the yarns, are called the weft, and the what are usually horizontal is the I'm blanking right now.
Warp.
The warp. Thank you. And she's instead of like in usual weaving technique, doing it horizontally to make color, Sheila is moving the warp down vertically in different directions, and she's creating this texture. We'll see something like that in Lee ShinJa's work in a little bit. And here we also see something that's currently at SF MoMA that Lee ShinJa employs in later work. Both of these, by the way, are much later than were produced much later than Lee ShinJa's contact with these two artists. But it gives you a sense of this motion away from traditional two-dimensional work towards using the materials as a sculptural form.
Yeah, this is I haven't seen this yet at SF MoMA, and looks very interesting. So definitely want to check it out. Where is this? Is this out? It's on the fourth floor?
The one on the right is outside in the sculpture garden. The one on the left is, yes, on the fourth floor.
Okay. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for thinking of that, Nick.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move into the 1970s, and now things are going to get really interesting, I think, if they weren't already. She's had this exposure to these other international artists. She starts thinking about textile as a sculptural form, and like what's going on here? What are we looking at? I'll start with you, Jeanette. Like what is she doing?
Well, some of the things that I really like. So, what we saw at the beginning was a lot of threads on fabric. And now we're seeing almost fabric creation. So, creating fabric through various techniques. So, and then also something that we see here is creating almost a series or multiple things that are grouped together. And we'll see, these are both things that we're going to see now through the rest of her work is, doing multiples of a thing is something she's going to do, or a series, and also creating a fabric and not just stitching on a fabric. And here, I think that it's so interesting. So we've got these 3 panels, and then she's creating, I think Nick will talk more about these reticules that I think you put a slide in talking about the history of them. But you can see this close-up here of these, basically it looks like they were knit or crocheted, probably crocheted or woven in some way, little reticules that have been created, and so many of them. But in this sort of, in all 3 panels, it creates like an S shape or a snake shape, an undulation shape, moving from, well, I don't know, from top to bottom, from bottom to top. Do we read them like right to left, left to right, or do we take them all in as one thing? But it's absolutely creating, still with these textiles, something unique and new, but with a reference to women's fashion, or maybe not fashion, women's
Accessories.
dressing and accessories. Yeah.
Yeah. So Nick, tell us more about the reticules and
Go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So these are reticules. I didn't know the word. I was walking through the gallery and talking to a woman about our age, and I was wondering what they were, and she said, "Oh, they're reticules." And I had to look that up. Well, she described it, but this is the definition: a woman's small handbag, originally netted, and typically having a drawstring and decorated with embroidery or beading. So it's sort of, I think of it as an external pocket. Um, and somebody commented that women's clothing rarely has enough pockets compared to what men wear. I want to ask Nell a question here. If you go back one slide, Nell is my wife, and she's on this call. Are you with us, Nell?
Yeah, I am.
So, what does that remind you of on the right?
On the right?
Yeah, that technique.
Oh, I think it looks kind of like knitting. So, um,
How about
oh,
the?
you're not talking about the reticules, though, do you? You're talking about the other one?
No, I'm talking about the image you're seeing right now, and I'm thinking of the valances over our windows that you crocheted for years while riding on the bus on your commute to San Francisco. This is crochet, isn't it?
Um,
Isn't it a thread with a hook and you make a knot? Isn't this all knotted yarn threads?
yes, it is, but it doesn't. It could also just be kind of a thread going through materials, kind of using a needle, because I don't see it as a crochet stitch
Mm-hmm.
or a knitting stitch. I
Mm-hmm.
think, for example, if you look at the one on the right, you can really see the threads coming out, and it's, at the top, where they just must have been wrapped around each other.
Mm-hmm.
It
So,
also sort of reminds me of like macrame plant
yeah,
holders.
you know what? I think that's what it is, macrame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much more like that. And so it is around a ring, and then they work the threads around a ring. But macrame, I think that's the correct technique
Mm-hmm.
And
that's
I think that
used.
was really popular in the 70s, wasn't it? Or is
Oh, yeah, I know. I macrameed in the 70s. Remember that pot hanger, Nick?
Oh
That was
yeah.
macrame.
But you remember at the Embarcadero BART station, the huge, like 30-foot tall macrame on the north of
Yeah.
the BART station. It was massive. It was very sculptural. It was beautiful. After a couple of decades, perhaps, they took it down because it was so dark with all of the grime of the trains and the traffic and so on. But that was quite a powerful piece.
Yeah. We had a comment in chat that from afar it looks like strolling people.
Hmm,
I like that comment. That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like from from an aerial view or
I like
something.
that.
Let's move on to this one. This one really grabbed me. The colors are amazing. And we're thinking it also reminds us of something that might be going on in our area right now. I'll start with you, Nick. What was it about this piece that really struck you?
Let's see. I went to Trader Joe's this morning, and the ground was really wet, as we all know. And there were a lot of fallen leaves, and the leaves were all of these colors of orange and yellows and browns underfoot. And those are the colors that I see here. And she certainly refers to that in the title, Conversation with Autumn. Well, now it's the beginning of winter, but that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, and what about you, Jeanette?
Oh my gosh. You know, she is just, I feel like she's masterful with color. She knows, we just saw one that was all the sort of
It was
beige
monochrome.
color. And
Yeah,
you're right, Nick, there was a little bit of like gap, like subtle tones. But even when she puts the subtle tones together, she puts the right colors together. And
Oh,
this one is just probably the most exciting one that we had if you're going chronologically. Just the colors are starting to get brighter and more exciting. You see also this sort of S shape coming down. It mimics the same shape from the group with the reticules
Mhm.
that we just saw, but she's using just these colors that they're but it's not just the colors. The colors are gorgeous. I just love these colors anyway. But it's also the materials that she's using, and that there's these hanging threads off of each one. Some of them, as you can see in this sort of close-up detail shot, some of these little pieces are plain, but a lot of them have some sort of larger stitching on them with yarn hanging down. It gives it so much visual impact. So we have the color impact, boom, just these gorgeous colors that look even better in person than here. We've got this texture and this textiles. Boom, we've got this long, tall piece. I mean, we don't have a person in here, but it is quite tall piece. Boom, we've got this sort of snake shape coming through. There's so much visual interest here, and it's so exciting. And yes, then it does remind us of this time of year where we're sort of starting to leave. But I love it. I especially just, these fall, the oranges and yellows and reds together, just there's something just wonderful about that.
Yeah, think about this next time you see a bunch of leaves on the ground, which if you go out right now, you're going to see them.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving. We only have like about 15 minutes left.
This always
Um,
happens.
yeah, because we have so many great images.
Yeah.
This screen is a really fun image in you can see right through it. Jeanette, what was it about the screen that you really loved?
I love that it's a deconstruction of weaving so that it's almost like you see how weaving is made. Nick mentioned the warp and the weft. You like see this, you've deconstructed it, you've taken it apart, and then she's added this like hourglass shape just by deciding to weave in some pieces uh, in longer lengths at the top and bottom, and then into shorter lengths.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just very cool.
The next slide shows that very well, Rodney. Look at that.
Yep. So real, like you said, Jeanette, deconstructing the technique, helping you appreciate how it works.
But then but it's not a it's, you get the learning part of it, the understanding of how it works, but then it's art. The choices that she makes are what really make it extraordinary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna keep moving. Nick, tell us about this one. I know you're both gonna want to talk about this, but Nick, what about this one that
I really appreciate that this is hanging free in the middle of the gallery so you can walk around it. So we can see the back of the work. It's easy, perhaps you need to be reminded you're looking at a mirror image on the left or on the right. So towards the center is the same form. And as you move out towards the edges, you see the backs of those forms. You see it's also relatively fuzzier on the right. You don't have quite the sharp edges. Um, I guess this is called plain weaving. Does anybody know anything about weaving technique? Um, I think what that means is that the same threads, the warp going horizontally, move right across from left to right continuously rather than being knotted. Short pieces being knotted as in a tapestry. So this is a weave, actually. It's a woven piece. That's about all I know about the technique. I don't want to stretch beyond my knowledge, but that's my impression.
what about you, Jeanette? I know you like the fact that we could see both the front and the back, right?
Yeah, I know, like as a knitter, whenever I do color work, other knitters want to see the back. They want to see like what I did in the backside too. But so I love, there were three pieces in this particular gallery that you could walk around, so you can see the front and the back. And I think that that was such a good decision by the curator to let us see both sides. And This is the one also I think I mentioned earlier that we talked about Joan Miro. If you look at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
on just if we want to look at the front one, yeah, that little hat, sort of a half moon with a thing on it over. So, and I lived for a couple years in Barcelona, right near Park Joan Miró, which had a sculpture of his called, I think, Woman and Bird. And this just, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that reminds me of that, the almost not quite bowling pin shape. Here it's white with a little, well, crescent moon, I should say, at the top. And then, like, inside, this is definitely, I saw that in here. And Again, there's some references, some ideas, maybe some influences, or just maybe she came up with it on her own, but then she takes this really, I mean, it almost looks like a painting instead of a tapestry, the way that the edges are sort of fuzzy, and it looks like, she just took a brush and sort of brushed through.
Yeah,
And there's something gorgeous again about her color choices here.
and Ella comments, it's amazing how clean the back is. So I guess if I'm assuming that comment reflects that it isn't usually easy to make the back look as vibrant as it does here. Let's keep moving. This one really interesting. We talk about her use of color, but she also does really interesting things in more of a monochrome way.
Hey, Rodney, I just want to chime out that
Sure.
earlier, it really looks like tapestry. Like
Yeah,
it's
look, it is very much
vivid.
like a tapestry. In fact,
Yeah,
I don't think
it's vivid.
you could
Very
call it a
vivid.
tapestry.
Yep.
Very surreal kind of tapestry, I would say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's see, Nick, tell us about joining.
I think you already observed that it's monochrome rather than allowing it to hang from the top to the bottom. She's picking up parts of it and bringing it upwards, maybe 6, 8, 10 inches, and then sewing it to the fabric above, and it's creating this kind of scallop effect. And that's very much like what we saw in those other artists, like Abakanowitz, doing the same thing, making these thick, rich forms out of what would otherwise just be flat hanging fabric.
Yeah, it's like it's a sculpture. It's
Yeah.
it may be fabric, but it's also a sculpture, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, Memory. Start with you, Jeanette.
Well, I felt like this one was, um, you could do some of the same tricks you do with an impressionist painting. When you're standing really up close, you just see like pieces of color, or maybe even a pointillist. I mean, you see like pieces of color, and you don't get the whole picture. You just see this like lovely colors, and then you step back, step back, step back, and suddenly this landscape appears. And I think that's really beautiful. And thinking now about memory, calling it, maybe this was a memory of hers, but also the sort of the idea that maybe we store memory in impressions, like colors and thoughts and little pieces that then make up a bigger, I don't know, maybe I'm stretching
Yeah, and
here.
there's a blur to it
Yeah.
that makes me think of, say, Gerhard Richter.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of things about memory that are blurred.
And he
Hmm.
takes that brush and just like goes back and forth over it to give that blur. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick, what are your thoughts?
The first thing I thought of was our conversation about the piece in which we saw both the front and the back, and we mentioned the kind of the shading, is the way I read it, of color. So you don't have a crisp edge where one color ends and another color begins, but rather you have a kind of a modulation from, in this case, a darker brown to a medium brown to a light brown, and she's doing that with the threads. with the warp. And that's the first thing I thought about was how she achieves shading. And if you zoom in again, you could see that really clearly. Yeah, look at that. So we're seeing the
That's
threads as the
gorgeous.
horizontal movement change color. The other thing is what I picked up on is what Jeanette said, and the quality of memory to blur and I don't know if this is metaphor or actual mental imagery, but to blur the sharpness, to blur the quality of immediate perception, the way we're seeing our things around us in the room. So I think the memory is a very interesting title here because it creates a vague and a blurred impression of the past.
Yep.
And once again, go back for a second. I want
Sure.
to pick up Jeanette's half moon in the upper right.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
although it could also be maybe a mountain. So it's not clear that if
Oh
that's
yeah.
what it is.
Okay.
But it could be
I
either.
like that ambiguity though.
Yeah,
I like
because
that we
it's on
don't
top of
know.
it's on top of this maybe tree or something, which is similar to what we saw before.
Hmm.
All right, let's move on to this one. This was a really big one, and just these colors are amazing. And there's a progression, right? This is another one of these series that we've been talking about. Jeanette, what's going on here?
Yeah, so we've got this series of five of them now. We also have this sort of S curve. It's represented differently now, um, but we still have sort of the curving shapes that come down in multiple kinds of curves, and you see the curves get smaller as we move from left to right, or maybe they get larger if we move from right to left. It's all perspective. And then also, we do have this hanging element too. So something that's coming off the flatness of the background. So it's not flat. We've got this three-dimensional quality to it. But really, what I find most stunning is we've taken these fall colors and we've amped it up a bit, making it, you know, a brighter orange, a brighter red, and set it against black, which then makes it even brighter seeming. And so everything's a little more vivid and vibrant in a way that that I think is beautiful. I thought all the other ones were too, though, but this is beautiful.
I'm going to move us along just because we are unfortunately running low on time. So here's another one with those amazing colors.
And in this one, the yarn is hanging down. It kind of reminds me of what Nick was showing with Sheila Hicks's big yarn,
Yeah.
untitled yarn waterfall.
You see that,
Right.
Nick? Is this one of the parallels to Sheila
Oh,
Hicks?
for sure, for sure. That's exactly what I thought of as well. Look on the left, though. You once again see the shading technique of the red to the black on the left-hand panel.
Yeah.
And then you see the larger effect of stepping back
Oh,
in the piece in sprouting. So that's quite beautiful. And also the modulation of red to black in the overall height of the piece. If you just run your eyes from the top to the bottom, or from the bottom of the top, you see that black modulating into red,
and
staying red,
it's
and the
like
shadow. It's
it'd be
quite cool.
one thing if you're like Mark Rothko doing it with paint, but he's doing this with thread, That's what's so mind-boggling, I think. All right, gonna move us along because we're in like our last 5 minutes. And like I said, we're just so much in this
Yeah.
show. You will definitely be very rewarded if it's just a BART trip away if you're in the Bay Area. It's downtown Berkeley, BART. It's very close to it. Nick, tell us about the Spirit of the Mountain series.
Well, earlier I talked about how in the 70s and the 80s, following a general trend in the art world, as a matter of fact, with minimalism and conceptualism, these things that started to challenge the idea that a picture is a representation of the world. She's returning after kind of pushing away from that to a kind of materiality and concern for the object quality itself. Here she is representing things again in a very traditional way. Sure, they're abstract, but they're landscapes. They have a kind of a traditional perspective forms overlap, the dark in front of the light, gray, kind of atmospheric effects. Um, but she's carrying forward also some of the ideas about three-dimensionality that we've seen before. If you go to the next slide, Rodney, these look like pencils or brushes, maybe, that are painting an orange line across the sky. Really lovely.
Yeah, and I have a theory about that that I'm going to throw at you guys. Let's look at a few of these other. So here's another close up of that. So this is an actual object that's on, it's like wood, I guess wrapped. This is like a black wrapping of fabric, I believe.
Hmm.
And then here's like we we were thinking maybe this could be a table. It's not exactly clear what it is, but these things are attached. Jeanette, like do you have an interpretation of this? Like, what do you think is going on?
Well, so I kind of think of it as I think that it's metal that's being wrapped with yarn. And in my mind, I don't know, I just thought about it as like the ore, like metal ores that can be inside of mountains that go through these great geologic processes to become mountains. This movement of soil and earth and plates and everything that causes mountains to become mountains, and the inside there's all this metal ore in my head. I don't know if this is right. And that these like metal pieces are, especially with the paintbrushes, I think of it as like painting, like these mountains have these elemental metals in them. And then it's also kind of like it's and the one right in the center bottom, we're mimicking an out maybe a skyline of a mountain with this
Hmm.
is that's where I took it. But I see that this could have a number of different ways of thinking about it, and I'd love to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, Nick. Well, Nick, I'll let you go, and then I'll throw in my thoughts.
Actually, I was looking at your edition of slides in the show, and I see that you're bringing back in the drawings, and I think that's really interesting. Rodney, could you go?
Do you want to move to that?
Yeah, let's go to that.
Because it is really this is in the vitrine where you can see the drawings that she did, and it helps you appreciate how she created a lot of these works. So
Hmm.
this is the Spirit of the Mountain drawings. And then we have this one, which would have been that, what was that other piece? The one,
Oh, the,
Nature
yeah.
critique.
yeah, yeah. What was the title of that again?
Nature 1 and Nature 2, or Nature 1
Yeah,
and 2.
I'll look it up here. I've got a copy of the show right here in
So,
front.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like she has these drawings, and again, I see so many parallels between her and Ruth Asawa. That Ruth Asawa, we always think of her as a sculptor, but she had all these amazing drawings, and the show about her that we recently had in San Francisco that is now at the New York Museum of Modern Art has a lot of those drawings.
Hmm.
It's really fun to see Lee ShinJa's drawings.
Yes, it is indeed. Yeah. The title of that work is Nature and I that you're referring to.
Yeah,
And
and it's called Nature and I. My interpretation of this is, could it be that the mountains, the beauty of nature inspires her to be an artist, and that is what the connection is between what look like these paintbrushes in the mountains. I don't know.
Oh, I
Mhm.
love that. And maybe those aren't tables, those rectangles. Maybe those are frames.
Maybe those are frames. Oh, good. Thank you. I wasn't sure what to think. I didn't know how that was going to fit into the theory. Um, we are at a little bit after two, but I think we can get at least one more thing in. Here's yet another one called Spirit of the Mountain. So she kind of uses that title for multiple works in the 1990s. But this is the most recent work that she has, Prayer 3 and Prayer 4. So this is from 18 years ago. And I don't think she's really actively creating art anymore. But
Mhm.
here's like a close-up, Nick, that you provided.
Yeah, this is suggestive of those wrapped rods in the Sheila Hicks work too.
Yeah, there's that, which is the centerpiece here.
Hmm.
And also could it, again, holidays, could this be a Hanukkah menorah here? I don't.
Air prayer. Yeah.
So we
It
got
looks
Christmas
like
trees, we got reindeer.
chapels, Rodney.
Say
Like
that
the
again,
chapel
Paco.
door. Like a
Paco,
doors.
sorry, Paco, say that again.
Once again, it looks like a chapel doors.
Chapel
That
doors,
reminds
that
Sure.
too. So we're
Yeah.
kind of hitting all the holiday notes here with this exhibition. So this exhibition is going to be on view through February 1st. You have about a month and a week or so to go see this thing. Can't recommend it highly enough. Last words, we'll start with you, Nick. What are your last thoughts on this?
I really like looking at a show that covers almost the entirety of an artist's life because you could see the way he or she evolves over time. And I think it's really apparent in this show. So that's how I enjoyed it.
Well, thanks. What about you, Jeanette?
I love seeing a show that is in a medium or media that maybe traditionally were considered like women's work, or craft, artisan work, and not high art work. And then to see what an artist can do with that, really elevating it out of, at the beginning I called for, if you're a maker, yeah, you make, but this really has elevated any sort of um like craft feel. Is there is no craft feel in this. This is absolute high art, and I love seeing that. I love textiles myself. I love textile art. I just wish that I had known about her earlier. She is amazing. She's inspiring. She makes me want to make things. She makes me want to look at her things, and I am so glad that this exhibition is here in the Bay Area and that we can go see it and um, just feel the inspiration and wonder and excitement that she brings to her art.
Yeah, and it's a real triumph for the Berkeley Art Museum. It's just
Yeah.
wonderfully put together. The assistant curator, Tosif Noor, was kind enough to share images with us, and I enjoyed talking to him. I feel like he and the others at the museum should be very proud of this show.
Yep.
So, Jeanette, Nick, thank you so much. Great that we were able to tie in all this holiday stuff, which probably was not her intention, to be honest, although the menorahs at the end, I think those are pretty cool. Um, Wishing you both and everyone in the Art Viewing Adventures audience a very happy holidays. And we will be back in 3 weeks because that's how it works. We'll be the second week in January with another Art Viewing Adventures show. And thanks for everybody who tuned in.
Oh, we're
For some,
gonna have Richie's program tonight,
and
Rodney.
this is true. We've got Richie Unterberger doing his Boomer Music show at 6 p.m. tonight. I think I'll be there, and Paco, you're a regular, so that
Yeah.
would be great.
Happy holidays, Rodney.
Thank you. Any last thoughts, Nikki?
No, just have a wonderful holiday, everybody. This is very interesting. Thank you so much for bringing it to us, Rodney, and your guests. And we'll see you next year. Happy
See
New
y'all in
Year.
2026.
Happy
Happy New Year.
holidays,
Bye.
Nikki.
Holidays.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nikki.
Bye, Paco. Bye, Jennifer. Okay.